Listen up, gentlemen. Everything you've been told about earning a woman's respect is a complete lie. You've been sold this fairy tale that if you just text her enough, buy her enough gifts, show up at her door with flowers, and prove how much you care, she'll eventually see your worth and fall head over heels. But here's the brutal truth nobody wants to tell you. The harder you chase, the faster she runs. The more you invest without her asking, the less she values you. And right now, as you're watching this, you're probably doing at least three things that are killing any chance of earning her genuine respect. But here's what's going to blow your mind. There's one fundamental shift in how you operate that flips this entire dynamic on its head. It's something that makes women notice you, respect you, and yes, even chase you without you having to beg for their attention. It's counterintuitive. It goes against everything society teaches men. And most guys will never figure it out because it requires you to do something that feels completely wrong at first. But the men who master this, they become magnetic. Women compete for their time instead of taking it for granted. So if you're tired of being the guy who gets friend zoned, ignored after the third date, or treated like an option instead of a priority, then you need to understand what I'm about to share with you because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your current approach is sabotaging you, and more importantly, how to become the kind of man women naturally respect and pursue. Here's the first thing you need to understand about respect. It's earned through boundaries, not availability. Right now, you probably think being there for her every emotional crisis makes you valuable. Wrong. When she calls you at midnight crying about her ex, when she vents about her work drama for 2 hours straight, when she treats you like her personal therapist, you think you're building intimacy. But what you're actually doing is positioning yourself as her emotional support animal, not a romantic prospect. Women respect men who have their own emotional world to manage. Think about the guys she actually dates versus the guys she calls when she needs to vent. The difference is stark. The guys she's attracted to aren't sitting by their phones waiting to solve her problems. They're building their own lives, pursuing their own goals, dealing with their own challenges. This doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. It means you establish clear boundaries around your time and emotional energy. When she starts dumping her problems on you, instead of diving in with solutions and endless sympathy, you might say something like, "That sounds frustrating. What are you going to do about it?" Then you change the subject. You show that you care about her well being, but you're not going to become her unpaid therapist. I know a guy who used to spend hours every week listening to this woman complain about her dating life. He thought he was being supportive, building a connection. She saw him as a reliable source of validation with no romantic potential whatsoever. The moment he started setting boundaries around these conversations, suddenly she became curious about his life, his goals, what he was up to. Respect doesn't come from being endlessly available. It comes from being selectively available. This brings us to something most men completely misunderstand: the value of your time. You've been conditioned to believe that giving a woman unlimited access to your time shows how much you care. But here's what actually happens when you're always available. She stops valuing your presence because there's no scarcity. Women are attracted to men who have full, engaging lives. When you drop everything the moment she texts, when you're always free when she wants to hang out, when you prioritize her schedule over your own commitments, you're essentially telling her that nothing in your life is more important than her attention. And that's not attractive. It's desperate. The men women respect most are the ones who might say, "I'd love to see you, but I'm committed to my training session tonight. How about Thursday?" They're not playing games or being manipulative. They genuinely have priorities and stick to them. This creates natural tension and makes their time feel valuable. Here's a real example. Two guys ask the same woman out. Guy number one says, "I'm free. Anytime this week, just let me know what works for you." Guy number two says, "I'm free Saturday evening. There's this great new restaurant I've been wanting to try. Are you interested?" Which response suggests a more valuable, interesting life? Which man seems like he has options and standards? Your time scarcity shouldn't be artificial or manipulative. It should be genuine. You should actually be building a life so compelling that your time becomes naturally limited and therefore more valuable. Women notice when a man has real priorities and pursuits beyond getting their attention. Most men approach dating like they're interviewing for a job they desperately need. They try to figure out what she wants and become that person. They seek her approval at every turn. But women don't respect men who shapeshift to please them. They respect men who have clear standards and stick to them. Think about it this way: if you'll accept any behavior from her just to keep her around, what does that say about your self respect? If you tolerate being canceled on repeatedly, being treated as a backup option, or being spoken to disrespectfully, you're teaching her exactly how little you value yourself. Women test boundaries constantly, often unconsciously. They want to know if you're a man with standards or if you'll compromise yourself to keep them happy. When she shows up 30 minutes late without an apology, how do you respond? When she talks to other guys inappropriately in front of you, do you address it or pretend it doesn't bother you? When she makes plans, then cancels last minute, do you just accept it with a smile? The men women respect most have clear, consistent standards. They might say, I understand things come up, but I value both of our time. If you need to cancel, I'd appreciate more notice next time. They're not harsh or controlling, but they're also not pushovers. They communicate their expectations calmly and clearly. I watched a friend completely transform his dating life when he started doing this. He used to tolerate all kinds of disrespectful behavior because he was afraid of losing the woman's interest. The moment he started having standards and communicating them respectfully but firmly, women began treating him differently. They started showing up on time, putting effort into dates, and speaking to him with more consideration. Here's something that separates boys from men in a woman's eyes: emotional self regulation. When you react emotionally to everything she does, when you get jealous, possessive, or needy, you're showing her that she has complete control over your emotional state. And nothing kills respect faster than knowing you can manipulate someone's emotions effortlessly. Women are constantly dealing with men who lose their composure. The guy who gets angry when she doesn't text back immediately, the guy who becomes jealous when she mentions male friends, the guy who becomes clingy after one good date. These reactions might come from caring, but they signal emotional instability and low self worth. The men women respect remain calm and composed regardless of her behavior. If she doesn't text back, they assume she's busy and continue with their day. If she mentions other guys, they remain secure in their own value. If she seems distant, they don't panic and start overcompensating with attention. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally unavailable or cold. It means developing the emotional strength to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. When you're not reactive, when your mood and self worth aren't dependent on her responses, you become much more attractive and respectable. Picture this scenario. She mentions that her ex texted her. The insecure guy immediately starts asking questions, getting jealous, maybe even demanding she block him. The secure guy might say, "Oh, how's he doing?" and then change the subject. He's not threatened because he knows his own worth. He trusts himself and the situation. That kind of emotional stability is incredibly attractive to women. Women don't respect men who make them the center of their universe. They respect men who invite them into an already interesting life. If your entire world revolves around getting and keeping her attention, you're not offering partnership, you're offering dependency. Think about the most attractive, successful men you know. Are they sitting around waiting for women to text them back? Are they dropping their goals and interests the moment they start dating someone? Of course not. They have careers they're passionate about, hobbies they enjoy, friendships they maintain, goals they're pursuing. They're building their own kingdom, and women want to be part of something impressive, not responsible for creating it. This means you need to be genuinely invested in your own growth and development. Hit the gym not to impress women, but because you want to be strong and healthy. Pursue your career goals not to make more money for dates, but because you want to build something meaningful. Develop your interests and skills not to have something to talk about, but because they fulfill you. When you're genuinely focused on building an impressive life, several things happen. First, you become naturally less available and therefore more valuable. Second, you become more interesting because you have real experiences and accomplishments to share. Third, you develop genuine confidence because your self-worth isn't dependent on external validation. I know a guy who was struggling with dating until he decided to focus entirely on his business for 6 months. He stopped actively pursuing women and poured his energy into building something he was proud of. By the end of those 6 months, not only had his business grown significantly, but women were suddenly much more interested in him. He had stories to tell, passion in his voice, and a sense of purpose that was magnetic. This might be the most counterintuitive concept, but it's also one of the most powerful. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step back. When you feel yourself becoming too invested, too available, too eager, that's your cue to create some space. Not to play games, but to regain your center and remember your own worth. Most men, when they feel a woman pulling away, double down. They text more, try harder, become more accommodating. But this almost always backfires because it confirms her suspicion that you're too available, too eager, too desperate for her validation. The men women respect do the opposite. When they sense overinvestment, they step back and focus on their own lives. This isn't about being manipulative or playing hard to get artificially. It's about recognizing when you're becoming unbalanced in your investment and correcting course. If you realize you're always the one initiating contact, you pull back and let her reach out. If you notice you're always available when she wants to hang out, you make sure you have other plans sometimes. Here's what this looks like in practice. You've been texting her every day for 2 weeks. The conversation is good, but you realize you're always the one starting it. Instead of continuing this pattern, you don't text her for a couple of days. Not to punish her or make her worry, but to see if she's equally invested. If she reaches out, great. If she doesn't, you have valuable information about her level of interest. Strategic withdrawal forces both of you to evaluate the dynamic. It prevents you from overinvesting in someone who isn't matching your energy. And it often makes her realize how much she enjoys your attention, which can reignite her interest in pursuing you. How you communicate with women reveals everything about how you see yourself and how you expect to be treated. Most men communicate from a position of hoping to please, seeking approval, avoiding conflict. But women respect direct, honest communication from men who aren't afraid to take up space. This means saying what you mean without excessive qualification or apology. Instead of, I was wondering if maybe you might want to possibly grab dinner sometime if you're free, try, I'd like to take you to dinner Friday night. Are you available? The second version shows confidence and clarity. It's not aggressive, but it's not apologetic either. It also means being willing to disagree when you actually disagree. If she says something you don't agree with, you don't have to nod and smile to keep the peace. You can respectfully share your perspective. Women don't want yes men. They want partners who have their own thoughts and opinions and aren't afraid to express them. This extends to how you handle difficult conversations. If something bothers you, address it directly rather than hoping it will go away or dropping passive-aggressive hints. I noticed you've canceled our last two plans. Is everything okay, or would you prefer to reschedule for a time that works better? This is much more effective than silently stewing or making sarcastic comments. The key is communicating from a place of self-respect rather than self-doubt. You're not attacking her or being demanding. You're simply being clear about your thoughts, feelings, and expectations. This kind of authentic communication builds respect because it shows you value yourself enough to be honest. Physical presence and confidence. Your physical presence communicates volumes before you even say a word. The way you carry yourself, your posture, your eye contact, your handshake, all of these things either command respect or signal insecurity. Women are incredibly attuned to these nonverbal cues because they reveal authentic confidence versus fake bravado. Real confidence in your physical presence isn't about puffing out your chest or taking up as much space as possible. It's about being comfortable in your own skin. It's maintaining good posture because you respect yourself. It's making appropriate eye contact because you're not afraid to be seen. It's moving with purpose because you know where you're going. Pay attention to how you position yourself when you're with her. Are you constantly leaning in, seeking her approval with your body language? Are you fidgeting, looking around nervously, or taking up as little space as possible? These behaviors communicate insecurity and neediness. Instead, sit back in your chair, maintain relaxed but attentive posture, and be fully present without being anxious. Your physical fitness also plays a role here, not because women only care about muscles, but because taking care of your body demonstrates self-respect and discipline. A man who works out regularly, eats well, and maintains good grooming habits is showing that he values himself enough to invest in his health and appearance. But here's the crucial part. This isn't about becoming someone you're not to impress women. It's about becoming the best version of yourself because you deserve to feel strong, healthy, and confident. When your physical presence comes from genuine self care and confidence rather than desperate attempts to impress, women notice the difference. Women respect men who can lead without being controlling, who can make decisions without being domineering, who can take charge without being aggressive. This is a delicate balance that many men struggle with, either becoming too passive or too controlling. True leadership in relationships means being willing to make plans, take initiative, and guide situations while still respecting her autonomy and preferences. It's saying, I've made reservations at that Italian place we talked about for Saturday at 7. Does that work for you? Rather than either, what do you want to do? Or, we're going here whether you like it or not. Leading means being decisive when decisions need to be made, but collaborative when her input matters. If you're walking together and need to choose a direction, you choose. If you're picking a restaurant and she has dietary restrictions, you ask about her preferences first. It's about reading situations and responding appropriately. Women often complain about men who can't or won't make decisions, who constantly ask, what do you want to do? Or I don't care, whatever you prefer. This puts the burden of planning and decision making entirely on her, which becomes exhausting. At the same time, they don't respect men who make unilateral decisions without considering her feelings or preferences. The sweet spot is confident leadership tempered with consideration. You take charge when someone needs to, but you're not a dictator. You have preferences and express them, but you're not inflexible. You guide the interaction without controlling every aspect of it. Here's the final and most difficult principle. You must be genuinely willing to walk away. Not as a manipulation tactic, not to make her chase you, but because you respect yourself too much to accept treatment that doesn't align with your standards. This willingness to walk away is what separates men-women respect from men they take for granted. Most men are so afraid of losing a woman's attention that they'll accept almost anything to keep her around. They'll tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, manipulation, and emotional unavailability because they'd rather have some connection than no connection at all. But this desperation is toxic to attraction and respect. Women can sense when you need them versus when you want them. Need is desperate, clingy, and ultimately unattractive. Want is appreciative, selective, and respectful. When you genuinely don't need her validation to feel good about yourself, when you're building an amazing life with or without her, when you have standards you're willing to enforce, that's when you become someone worth respecting. This doesn't mean being cruel or cutting people off at the first sign of imperfection. It means having clear deal breakers and being willing to enforce them. If she consistently disrespects you, walks away. If she's emotionally unavailable, walks away. If she's playing games or treating you as an option, walk away. The paradox is that when you're genuinely willing to walk away, you rarely have to. Women sense your self-respect and start treating you accordingly. They know they can't take you for granted because you've demonstrated that you won't accept poor treatment. So here's where we stand. You now understand why everything you've been doing to earn women's respect has been backfiring. You've seen how desperation disguised as devotion pushes women away, how being overly available makes you less valuable, how seeking approval kills attraction, and how emotional reactivity destroys respect. But more importantly, you now know what actually works. You understand that respect comes from having boundaries, from valuing your own time, from building an impressive life, from communicating directly, from leading with confidence, and from being willing to walk away when necessary. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to go back to the same patterns that have been failing you, or are you going to make the uncomfortable but necessary changes that will transform how women see and treat you? I want you to think honestly about your recent interactions with women. Have you been the pursuer or the pursued? Have you been reacting to their behavior or staying centered in your own worth? Have you been seeking their approval or commanding their respect? Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when you changed your approach with a woman and saw her attitude toward you shift. Or, if you're just starting to understand these concepts, tell me which principle hit you the hardest and what you're going to do differently. Remember, respect isn't given freely. It's earned through consistent demonstration of self-worth, boundaries, and authentic confidence. Stop chasing women who don't chase you back. Start building a life so compelling that they want to be part of it. The choice and the power has always been yours.